Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Psych Talk. Today, I will talk about narcissistic personality disorder, which I know many people are actually interested in this disorder. And I want to start this episode with reading to you guys a case study of a person who has narcissistic personality disorder. So let's get into it. Oscar, a 46-year-old man who has worked for over 20 years as a government contractor for the Department of the Army, was well known to all of his colleagues for his forceful negotiating skills and his ability to stay calm under pressure. Oscar had been an only child, raised by a doting mother who was in her 40s when he was born. She was delighted to have a child and always praised him and catered to his needs. He was 7 when his father died, and from that point on, his mother started cooking his favorite meals every night for dinner. Even after he was married, his mother took dinner to his house every night, so he would have a home-cooked meal. His wife, Alexi, was instructed not to eat the food because it was for Oscar. Both Oscar and his mother viewed themselves as superior to other people. When she was around them, his wife was often the brunt of the irritability and annoyance that she did not wipe the kitchen sink dry after each use. Oscar and his mother were certain this was necessary to prevent aunts, and Lexi was just lacking about this important detail. It had been a bad year for Oscar. His mother had died at the age of 88, and he missed her constant praise, but mostly he missed her meatballs and dinners. The stress at home increased after his mother died, and Oscar was often irritable. In addition to his mother's death, Oscar was being investigated at work for possible fraud in negotiating contracts. Over $1 million was accounted for, and his coworkers were starting to criticize him, and Oscar came home from work every night grumbling about his quote unquote jealous inferiors as he tried to keep the full extent of the investigation a secret from his wife. But his company's annual 4th of July party was only a month away, and Oscar was sure he would be a main focus of the conversation. His insouciant veneer was starting to crack. One night, after his wife made his favorite food, fried chicken, based on his mother's recipe, Oscar took one bite and threw the plate of food across the room. "You're not Southern," he screamed at her, "and you never will be able to cook like my mother. Do I have to do everything myself?" The next day, his wife called a therapist to make an initial appointment. She expressed concern that her husband might not come to the appointment because he had not liked a previous therapist years earlier. He said no one is good enough for Oscar. She said no one is good enough for Oscar. He will ask you where you went to school, so I hope you have your diploma, license, and other certificates displayed on the wall in your office. He will be looking for them. Indeed, on the day of their first session, Oscar shook hands with the therapist and asked where she had gone to grad school while he scanned her credentials on the wall. After the first appointment, the therapist diagnosed Oscar with narcissistic personality disorder. I hope you like this story as an initial kind of overview of what narcissistic personality disorder can look like. Okay, so let's get started. Approximately 18% of men have narcissistic personality disorder and 6% of women. And research suggests that parenting practices play a major role in NPD development, and many individuals with narcissistic personality disorder have experienced parental neglect or criticism, which fosters vulnerability, mistrust, and a need for self sufficiency, which this often leads to a facade of superiority and entitlement, impairing their ability to connect with others. In some cases, though, parents who overly praise or idolize a child may instill an inflated self view, particularly in only children. or favored quote unquote firstborn sons. So these children grow up expecting special treatment, and they lack accountability and social reciprocity skills. And when faced with reality, feelings of shame and humiliation often surface. And so, people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they are actually extremely insecure, and their ego is very fragile. So whenever they get quote unquote caught under bullshit, they get very triggered, and they cannot control it, and they go off on people. And so they are trying to protect this very fragile ego with this, you know, fake personality, this mask that they put, this facade that they basically want people to see, which is basically, I'm great, I know everything, I'm successful, I have this, I have that, but in reality, it's all fake. And so, as I said before, individuals with NPD may react very strongly to threats to their self-image, and sometimes withdrawing socially or expressing anger and resentment. In severe cases, a perceived humiliation can lead to depression, driving them to seek help. Many people with narcissistic personality disorder obviously show very limited empathy. They have shallow relationships, and they have this desire to control others. And they often appear in couples therapy due to, their partner's dissatisfaction, and they may attempt to manipulate the therapist to reinforce their perceived superiority. So basically, the only time you will see these people actually seeking therapy is because they're forced by their partner to go to therapy. And in the workplace, they can display poor interpersonal skills and an unwillingness to follow rules. Although some obviously do achieve professional success by relying on self-sufficiency. And given the fact that narcissistic personality disorder is a very complex type of disorders, therapists may struggle to build rapport due to their resistance to acknowledge their issues, and also they have kind of a unique self-perception. And so treatment requires therapists who project warmth, empathy, and acceptance. And effective therapies that could work on them will be cognitive behavioral therapy and schema-focused approaches, um, which basically they address entitlement and empathic deficits. And for clients who resist long-term therapy, short-term goal-focused interventions may be more practical. Obviously, the prognosis is that it's very challenging to treat narcissistic personality disorder, and usually successful therapy often relies on the therapist's ability to balance empathy with firm boundaries. And according to the DSM-5, NPD is characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, and a constant need for admiration and a lack of empathy. And it begins by early adulthood, and it's very present in various contexts. And to meet the full criteria for this diagnosis, 5 or more of the following things that I'm going to list have to be present. So they have to have a grandiose sense of self-importance, so exaggerates achievements and talents and expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate accomplishments. Preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. So they often engage in fantasies about personal potential and superiority. Belief of being special and unique, so beliefs they can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. Need for excessive admiration, so they require constant attention and praise. Sense of entitlement, They have an unreasonable expectation of like favorable treatment or automatic compliance with their wishes, entitlement. Um, Interpersonally exploitative, so they take advantage of others to achieve their own ends. They lack empathy, so unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Envy of others or belief that others are envious of them, so often exhibits jealousy or believes others are envious of them. Arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes, so frequently demonstrates disdainful or condescending behavior towards others. So, as a summary, as we all know, people with narcissistic personality disorder, they want to be seen as very successful, very important, unique, special, intelligent people, and they don't really care if they are actually successful, but they want to be seen as successful. They lack empathy, obviously, they gaslight people a lot, so they uh, try to like instill their reality onto other people and kind of distort other people's reality by saying, "Oh, what your experience is actually not um, valid. What you're experiencing is not true." They can be very arrogant. They can be very entitled. They can ruin people's lives, truly, and it's very hard for them to change if I mean, that, I mean, the possibilities of them changes are very slim, especially because they do not seek therapy in the first place. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist or you have a friend who's a narcissist, just leave instead of trying to change them because, I mean, literally the possibility of them change are very, very slim. And so, yeah, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it.